Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms: to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. When we're no longer able to change a situation, we're challenged to change ourselves. But there was no need to be ashamed of tears, for tears bore witness that a man had the greatest of courage, the courage to suffer. An abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is normal behavior. In some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds the meaning, such as the meaning of a sacrifice. So live as if you were living already for the second time, and as if you had acted the first time as wrongly as you are about to act now. No man should judge unless he asks himself in absolute honesty whether in a similar situation he might not have done the same. Happiness cannot be pursued, it must ensue. One must have a reason to be happy. Once the reason is found, one becomes happy automatically. Love goes very far beyond the physical person of the beloved. It finds its deepest meaning in his spiritual being, his inner self. Whether or not he's actually present, whether or not he is still alive at all, ceases somehow to be of importance. I do not forget any good deed done to me, and I do not carry a grudge for a bad one. A man who becomes conscious of the responsibility he bears toward a human being who affectionately waits for him, or to an unfinished work, will never be able to throw away his life. He knows the why for his existence, and will be able to bear almost anyhow. Man does not simply exist, but always decides what his existence will be, what he will become the next moment. By the same token, every human being has the freedom to change at any instant. It is not freedom from conditions, but it is freedom to take a stand toward the conditions. For the world is in a bad state, but everything will become still worse unless each of us does his best. What is demanded of man is not, as some existential philosophers teach, to endure the meaninglessness of life, but rather to bear his incapacity to grasp its unconditional meaningfulness in rational terms. If one cannot change a situation that causes his suffering, he can still choose his attitude. A passive life of enjoyment affords the opportunity to obtain fulfillment in experiencing beauty, art, or nature. Man can preserve a vestige of spiritual freedom, of independence of mind, even in terrible conditions of psychic and physical stress. Don't aim at success. The more you aim at it and make it a target, the more you are going to miss it. For success, like happiness, cannot be pursued, it must ensue. And it only does so as the unintended side, effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself, or as the byproduct of one's surrender to a person other than oneself.
An active life serves the purpose of giving man the opportunity to realize values in creative work. We may also find meaning in life even when confronted with a hopeless situation, when facing a fate that cannot be changed. Optimism is not anything to be commanded or ordered. Life ultimately means taking the responsibility to find the right answer to its problems and to fulfill the tasks which it constantly sets for each individual. A human being is not one in pursuit of happiness, but rather in search of a reason to become happy. Through actualizing the potential meaning inherent and dormant in a given situation. I know that without the suffering, the growth that I have achieved would have been impossible. There was no need to be ashamed of tears, for tears bore witness the man had the greatest of courage, the courage to suffer. It did not really matter what we expected from life, but rather what life expected from us. One cannot force oneself to be optimistic indiscriminately, against all odds, against all hope. Every human being has the freedom to change at any instant. If there is a meaning in life at all, then there must be a meaning in suffering. Suffering is an ineradicable part of life, even as fate and death. Without suffering and death, human life cannot be complete.